Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into, well, one of history's most tangled and frankly terrifying cold cases, the Zodiac Killer.
It really is a true labyrinth.
And yeah, you probably heard there's this whole new angle now. A TikToker went viral claiming their own grandfather is the Zodiac.
It's definitely an unexpected turn in a story that's already full of them. So our mission today is really to unpack all of this. We'll go back through the original crimes, look at some of the, the usual suspects historically, and then really dig into these new claims that popped up on social media. We want to pull out the key pieces, the nuggets of info, so you can feel properly informed about this whole very perplexing case.
Okay, so let's set the scene. We got to start at the beginning with the confirmed attacks. The Terror, December 20th, 1968. Lake Herman Road, Vallejo.
The victims were just kids, really. Betty Lou Jensen, 16, and David Faraday, 17.
Yeah, and by all accounts, just lovely kids. She was an honor student involved in youth groups. He was an Eagle Scout wrestler. Just really good kids on their first date.
Which makes what happened just utterly brutal. They were parked in a local lover's lane.
Right.
An assailant just walks up, fires a .22 rifle. David's shot in the head. Betty Lou tries to run.
Oh, God.
And she's shot 5 times in the back. She died right there. David died on the way to the hospital. Just horrific.
And then nothing. The trail just went cold.
Completely cold. For 7 months, it must have been terrifying for the community.
Until July 4th, 1969, Independence Day, Blue Rock Springs Park, also Vallejo.
Yeah, another attack. This time, Darlene Farron, she was 22, worked at a restaurant, apparently quite popular, and Michael McGough, only 19.
And Darlene was married, but seeing Michael.
That seems to be the story, yes. Again, parked in a lover's lane spot. Another car pulls up.
Same pattern.
Almost exactly.
Yeah.
Driver gets out, shines a flashlight right in their car, and just opens fire. Darlene was hit in the neck. She didn't make it. Michael was hit, too, in the arm, but incredibly, he survived.
He survived, so he saw the attacker.
He did. Gave a description. White man, heavy build, maybe 5'8", around 195, 200 pounds, short, curly, light brown hair, had a pot belly, dark clothes, no glasses.
That's pretty specific. But then the Zodiac takes it up a notch, right? He calls the police.
He does, just 20 minutes after the shooting. From a public phone booth, just a couple of blocks from the scene, the Vallejo PD gets this call.
Chilling.
Absolutely. A male voice, very calm, says, "I want to report a double murder. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." Just like that.
Claiming the first murders, too. Wow. How unusual was that for a killer to call in like that back then?
Extremely brazen. It immediately changed the game. This wasn't random violence. It was calculated, and he wanted recognition. He was taunting them.
And the taunting didn't stop there. A month later, the letters started.
Exactly. August 1st, 69. 3 newspapers get identical letters. He claims responsibility for both attacks, Lake Herman Road and Blue Rock Springs. Says the victims will be his slaves in the afterlife. Pretty bizarre stuff. And each letter had part of a cipher, a 408 symbol cryptogram. He claimed his identity was hidden in it.
And he threatened people.
Oh, yeah. He said if they didn't publish the cipher on the front page, he'd kill 12 people, just lone people, over the weekend. Pure psychological warfare.
Unbelievable. Okay. Attack number 3, September 27th, 1969, Lake Berryessa, Napa Valley.
A change of scenery. This time, it's Cecilia Shepard and Brian Hartnell. They were friends, had dated before, just relaxing by the lake.
The attacker appears differently this time.
Very differently. He's wearing this bizarre executioner-style hood, black covering his head, shoulders, chest, and it has that symbol on it.
The circle cross symbol, the Zodiac sign.
The very one. He tells them he's an escaped prisoner, then he ties them up with plastic clothesline.
Tied them up.
Yes, and apparently he tied Cecilia's knots incredibly tight. But Brian, thinking fast, managed to keep his looser. Then he stabbed them brutally.
Oh no, not shooting this time.
No, a knife. A foot-long knife. Brian later described it as looking homemade. He stabbed Brian 6 times, 1 through the lung. Cecilia 10 times, front and back.
How did anyone?
Well, as he left, the attacker actually wrote on Brian's car door, a white Carmen Ghia. He wrote the dates of the previous attacks and drew his symbol again, just meticulous, even then.
And someone found them.
A fisherman heard screams. They were both critical. Cecilia tragically died within 2 days. But Brian Hartnell survived.
Another survivor. That must have been huge for the investigation.
Absolutely critical. Brian gave that description. White male, 5'8" to maybe 6 feet tall, dark brown hair, heavy build. He described the hood, the knife. He even talked about his mindset, his goals to stay alive after being stabbed, an incredible will to live.
And the Zodiac called again.
He did. Just over an hour later, Napa County PD gets a call. Calm voice, emotionless. I wanted to report murder. No, a double murder. I'm the one who did it. Police traced it to a payphone in downtown Napa. They even found fingerprints there. And at the scene, they found prints too, a size 10.5 wing walker boot print and tire tracks. So more clues accumulating.
But still no identity. Then, attack number 4, just 2 weeks later, October 11th, 1969. San Francisco this time.
Right in the city. Paul Stein, a taxi driver. He was also a student working part-time.
And this one was different again.
Yeah, point-blank shooting, 9mm semi-automatic, shot in the head inside his cab. But the key difference, the Zodiac wasn't masked.
No mask. So witnesses saw his face.
3 young witnesses saw him from across the street, maybe 60 feet away. They saw him going through Stein's pockets, wicking down the cab.
What did they say he looks like?
White man, 25 to 30 years old, stocky build, reddish-brown crew-cut hair, heavy rim glasses, dark clothes. This was their best description yet.
Okay, so they have a clear description.
But then a major blunder. The police dispatcher mistakenly described the suspect as a black male over the radio.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so responding officers actually drove right past a man, matching the correct description, who was almost certainly the Zodiac, walking away from the scene. They didn't stop him.
Unbelievable. A mischance.
A huge mischance. They did get an updated sketch drawn later based on the witnesses. The sketches are probably the closest images we have.
What about evidence at the scene?
Bloody fingerprints inside the cab. And a large piece of Paul Stein's shirt was missing, torn right off.
Why would he take that?
Well, 2 days later, October 13th, the San Francisco Chronicle gets another letter from the Zodiac claiming Stein's murder. And inside,
The piece of shirt.
the piece of bloody shirt. Proof. And in the letter, he mocked the police again, said they were making more noise than actually trying to catch him. And he made that terrifying threat about shooting up a school bus.
Shooting kids.
Yeah.
Pick off the kiddies and they come bouncing out. That's just pure evil.
It really establishes pattern. The violence, the letters, the codes, the taunting, the threats, all played out in public through the media.
So we have this trail of terror, these clues, survivors' descriptions, letters, ciphers, fingerprints, boot prints. But the guy just vanishes. His identity remains a complete mystery for decades.
That's the frustrating heart of it. So much information, yet no definitive answer.
Which leads us to the suspects, right? How do you even start sifting through possibilities?
Exactly. Let's talk about some of the big names that have come up over the years. Probably the most famous suspect is Arthur Lee Allen.
Allen's name comes up constantly. His connection really started, or was strengthened, by looking back at an earlier murder in 1966. Sherry Jo Bates in Riverside, California.
Okay, how does he connect to that?
Well, Allen was apparently in Riverside around that time, and later, a Royal typewriter, similar to one used for some anonymous letters about the Bates case, was found at his home.
And his background wasn't exactly clean, was it?
No, definitely troubling. He'd been fired from a teaching job for assaulting students. Then he moves back home with his parents, just minutes away from where the first Zodiac attack Faraday and Jensen happened.
Very close. And then there's the watch. His brother gave him a Zodiac brand watch in '67, the circle cross symbol.
Okay, that's a bit uncanny.
It gets more direct. A friend of Allen's claimed that back in the late 60s, Allen talked about wanting to kill couples. He talked about taunting police with letters. He even supposedly mentioned using the name Zodiac.
He said that before the name was public.
According to this friend, yes. And the details matched, using a flashlight attached to a gun for night shootings, wearing disguises, even writing a novel about these fantasies. It lines up disturbingly well with what the Zodiac actually did.
Wow.
Yeah.
What about physical evidence linking him? Searches of his place.
They found things. That similar typewriter, yeah. Diagrams for making bombs, letters he'd written threatening school children, which connects back to that school bus threat, right?
Right.
His shoe size was 10.5, matching the Lake Berryessa prints, and he owned a knife that was similar in description to the one used at Lake Berryessa.
That sounds pretty compelling. A lot of circumstantial stuff pointing his way.
It is a lot, and people have tried to find more, manipulating symbols in one Zodiac letter about the movie The Exorcist to spell out Lee, Allen's middle name, or interpreting a symbol in a Bates-related letter as a Z or the number 32.
Why 32?
Well, Allen was 32 at one point. He lived at 32 Fresno Street, and one of the Zodiac ciphers had 32 characters. It's pattern-seeking maybe, but you can see why people grabbed onto it.
But it was never conclusive.
Never. Despite all these circumstantial links, handwriting analysis wasn't a definitive match. DNA tests later on also failed to link him conclusively. They searched his stuff after he died in 1992, but nothing concrete. No smoking gun.
So a prime suspect, but ultimately unproven. Frustrating. Who else was seriously considered? Richard Gaikowski.
Gaikowski's another interesting one. He had a background that raised eyebrows. Army Medic Service, some thought those skills might relate to the crimes, like maybe knowing how to use torn fabric, like Stin's shirt, effectively, or making weapons. He was arrested back in '65, minor thing, refusing a traffic citation. But he lived only about 5 miles from the first attack site in Vallejo. And by '69, he worked for a newspaper.
A newspaper? Like the Zodiac writing letters to?
Well, it was an underground counterculture paper called Good Times. Pretty anti-establishment, maybe even pro-violence in some ways. They published bomb diagrams. And get this, they ran a fictional story about revolutionaries fighting police on July 4th, 1969.
The same day as the second Zodiac attack.
Exactly. And the phrase good times actually appeared in some Zodiac letters later on. Little potential overlaps like that.
Weird coincidences.
And the office address for the Good Times switchboard, just a couple of doors down from where Paul Stine lived.
Okay, that's getting specific again.
People also tried to link his name to ciphers, a shortened version, GAIK, supposedly found. But the most compelling piece for Gaikowski, Nancy Slover.
The police dispatcher.
The one who took that chilling call after the July 4th attack. Years later, she heard a recording of Gaikowski's voice. She identified it, said she felt shocked, like deja vu. She believed it was the man she spoke to that night.
Wow, a voice ID from the actual dispatcher. How does that hold up?
It's powerful, potentially.
Guy.
But voice IDs can be tricky, memory fades, context matters. And complicating it, there are other recordings, one of Gaikowski talking about code breaking that sounds apparently quite different from a man who called into a live TV show claiming he was the Zodiac. So there's ambiguity.
So, again, suggestive, but not enough.
Not enough for investigators to officially name him. The leads just never solidified into hard proof.
And then, much more recently, Gary Francis Post. This was like 2021.
Yeah, that was the Case Breakers group, former law enforcement forensic people. They pointed the finger at Post.
What was their evidence?
They claimed DNA from a hiking mat that supposedly belonged to Post was a strong similarity to DNA found at Zodiac scenes. They also said he looked like the sketches. And they claimed the FBI had him as a secret suspect since 2016.
Did the FBI confirm that?
No. That's the key thing. The Case Breakers founder said his FBI sources confirmed an irrefutable match, but the Bureau itself came out and said, nope, the case is still open, no near info on Post being a suspect.
So that claim kind of fizzled.
It generated headlines, but lacked official confirmation. They also made claims Post trained other killers. His former neighbor, someone he apparently babysat, came forward believing it was him, citing a scar on his head that might match descriptions, and his shoe size.
But again.
Again, living nearby, owning guns, maybe having a scar. As investigators pointed out, that could describe thousands of people in the area at the time. It's hard to make it stick without more direct evidence.
Which brings us right up to the present and this TikTok situation.
Right. The viral videos from user at Joe 3.0, Jay Foy, claiming his own grandfather, Richard Hoffman, was the Zodiac.
And this wasn't entirely out of the blue. People online had mentioned this name before.
Apparently so. Internet sleuths had been kicking Hoffman's name around as a possibility since about 2016, but Foy's personal connection obviously gave it huge traction.
So what's the evidence Foy presents? What makes him think his grandfather was this notorious killer?
Well, first, the visual comparison. He put up photos of Hoffman, young and older, side by side with the police sketches. And you have to admit, there's a noticeable resemblance.
Okay, resemblance is one thing.
But then it gets much more specific. His grandfather, Richard Hoffman, was a Vallejo police officer.
A cop in Vallejo.
Yes. And he was on duty in an unmarked car wearing plain clothes the night of the Darlene Fair and Michael Mageau shooting July 4th, 1969. His specific role that night was patrolling to stop kids from, loitering or causing trouble late at night.
So he was right there, around the time and place of the second attack.
He was, and his report from that night, he stated he saw no suspicious activity in the Blue Rock Springs Park area about half an hour before the shooting happened.
Okay, so a cop on duty nearby sees nothing shortly before a murder happens in his patrol area. If this came up in a cold case now, how would investigators view that?
Oh, it would immediately raise huge red flags. His proximity, his role, his report of seeing nothing, combined with what comes next, it would demand intense scrutiny, especially the connection to Darlene Ferrin.
Right, the victim in that attack. What's the connection?
Michael Mageau, the survivor, apparently told people that just before the killer's car pulled up, Darlene saw it and said something like, "Oh my God, that's Richard. He's going to kill us both."
She knew a Richard.
That's the claim. And it fits with other accounts from Darlene's friends. They knew she was secretly dating a Vallejo police officer. They didn't know his name, just that he was a cop.
And Hoffman was a Vallejo cop.
Exactly. And there's more. Weeks before the murder, Hoffman allegedly showed up uninvited to a painting party Darlene was having. His presence reportedly terrified her. She told friends afterwards she was scared to death of him.
Wow. But did Hoffman admit knowing her?
Initially, he denied knowing her at all, but then apparently he sort of backtracked and said, well, he knew she worked at a local restaurant. A potential contradiction.
And that phone call the Zodiac made after her murder.
Right back to that. It was made from a payphone just 2 blocks away from the Vallejo Police Department, where Richard Hoffman worked.
Okay, the proximity, the alleged relationship, the fear she expressed, the phone call location.
Yeah.
It's a lot of converging detail.
It really is. And then there's the spelling error.
The spelling error.
Yeah, this is fascinating. Jay Foy points out that his grandfather, Richard Hoffman, consistently misspelled the word until as until with 2 L's. He did it in his police reports, even in a poem he wrote.
And the Zodiac.
The Zodiac killer made that exact same misspelling until on 2 separate occasions in his letters. The first couple of Zodiac letters were also noted for having multiple funny spelled words.
That specific error, repeated. That seems like more than a coincidence.
It's a very specific linguistic quirk. Foy adds that his grandfather apparently hated spelling, wasn't good at it, disliked crossword puzzles, but loved math. So maybe a consistent ingrained error.
That links Hoffman's writing habit directly to the Zodiac letters. What about the earlier case, Sherry Jo Bates in 1966? Any connection there?
Foy brings that up too. Bates had recently moved to Riverside from Nebraska. Richard Hoffman and his mother were also originally from Nebraska. A small link, maybe?
Okay. But the poem.
Ah, yes. The poem found under a desk at the Riverside City College Library, near where Bates was last seen. Forensic analysis later confirmed it was written by the Zodiac.
Right.
That poem was initialed R.H.
Richard Hoffman.
R.H. Exactly. The poem itself is deeply disturbing, talking about blood spilling, sick of living, unwilling to die. Just wait till next time. And remember, the Zodiac later claimed the Bates murder in a 1971 letter boasting about his Riverside activity. So you have a Zodiac-authored poem linked to a murder he claimed initialed R.H.
That's pretty chilling, connecting the initials directly to that confirmed Zodiac writing.
It's another one of those points that makes you pause. Foy also described his grandfather's personality controlling, manipulative, unfaithful, said he hated his own mother. Foy himself claims no relationship with Hoffman after age 9, stressing he's sharing this out of shock, not, any kind of pride.
Understandable. He also shared audio clips.
Yeah, from documentary interviews or recordings involving his grandfather. In one, Hoffman is heard describing a crime scene, talking about a victim's bra fluttering, calling it almost like a poem, describing someone burgling in pain. Foy suggests this reflects that detached, maybe even poetic way the Zodiac seemed to view his crimes.
That's disturbing imagery.
Very. And there's another audio bit where a friend of Michael Mageau recalls hearing Darlene talk about being afraid of some Richard who had a mean temper and might kill them if he found out they were together. Again, reinforcing that narrative.
So multiple angles pointing towards Hoffman. Any other theories Foy put forward?
There was one more, a bit speculative maybe. The Titwillow theory?
Titwillow.
Yeah, the Zodiac used that phrase from a song in the Gilbert and Sullivan opera The Mikado in one of his coded messages or letters. Foy points out that the same song also mentions a dicky bird.
Dicky. For Richard.
That's the leap Foy makes. Dicky bird as code for Richard. It's definitely, like you said, maybe a bit of a stretch. But the fact remains, the Zodiac did explicitly reference the Mikado in his communications. He was clearly familiar with it.
So all this evidence, compiled by the grandson, what's the goal now?
Foy has mentioned wanting to put together a more formal project, maybe a documentary, to lay out all the evidence systematically. He hopes that bringing all these threads together might finally push investigators to connect the dots definitively.
So we've gone from the original terror in the 60s through decades of dead ends and prominent suspects like Allen and Gaikowski, right up to this, well, frankly astonishing claim from a family member emerging on TikTok.
It really encapsulates the whole bizarre journey of this case, doesn't it? How it continues to twist and turn, and how new information, or at least new perspectives, can come from the most unexpected places now.
It absolutely highlights how complex these cold cases are.
Oh.
And the internet's role now is undeniable, for better or worse, maybe. Amateur sleuths jump again.
Right. And you see how, even with all our modern forensics, DNA technology, everything we have now, the Zodiac remains this ghost, this enigma. We see all this compelling circumstantial evidence pile up around certain names.
Yeah, like Allen, or now maybe Hoffman.
Exactly, mountains of it sometimes, but that concrete, irrefutable proof, that final link, it's still missing. And that's incredibly frustrating, not just for investigators, but for the public, for the victims' families still waiting for answers after more than half a century.
Which leaves us with a final thought, maybe. In this era where we feel like we have access to almost infinite information, everything's online, data everywhere, why do some mysteries like the Zodiac killer still hold out? Why can't we crack them, even when startling new claims surface on platforms like TikTok?
It's a profound question, isn't it? What does it say about our deep need for closure, for answers? And maybe it also points to the limits of what we can truly know when faced with such deep, enduring uncertainty. Some shadows just refuse to fade completely.